all so much for joining us. Special thanks to the folks from Kendall and the greater Oberlin community who have made it out. My name is Leah. I use she, her, and I'm one of the student assistants for the Oberlin implementation of the LIASE Initiative on Asian Studies and the Environment, or LIASE grant. We are so excited to be joined today by Jenny Xin Luan. Jenny is an Oberlin alum from Beijing, China. She graduated in 2018 with a double major in psychology and East Asian studies. After graduation, Jenny was awarded the Oberlin Shansi Hiroshima Fellowship and worked for 2 years with UNITAR, the United Nations Institute for Training and Research, as well as ANT Hiroshima and Green Legacy Hiroshima. Her talk today is based on her experience as a Shansi Fellow and involvement in Green Legacy Hiroshima's global partnership built through seeds and saplings of atomic survivor trees, and how collaboration can turn a small idea into something more. The talk will run for about 25 minutes and will be followed by a Q&A session that will end at 1 p.m. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming today's speaker, Jenny Xin Luan.
Hello everyone, I'm Jenny. Thank you very much for joining the talk with me today, and I'm going to talk about the atomic bomb survivor trees of Hiroshima, as well as Green Legacy Hiroshima, the peace initiative surrounding the atomic bomb survivor trees that I work with during my Shansi Fellowship, and how the network of partners through the atomic bomb seeds and saplings lead into efforts in building a botanical garden network in Afghanistan. So at 8:15 a.m. on August the 6th, 1945, the atomic bomb was dropped in Hiroshima and 3 days later in Nagasaki, Japan. So this is a picture of the mushroom cloud of the Hiroshima bombing from the air. And you can see here, this is the landmark of Hiroshima City, the Hiroshima Castle. This is before the bombing and after the bombing. You can see that the castle is completely gone. This is the same angle as well. So the trees, the leaves are burnt, and there's only the trunks left. So it was said at the time, nothing will grow in 70 years. No plants, no trees, and no flowers. However, the trees proved that wrong. So these are the atomic bomb survivor trees of Hiroshima, and they're called Hibakujimoku in Japanese. So even until now, there are 161 of these trees standing within the 2-kilometer radius from the hypocenter inside the city. And these trees are of different species, are of different growth and health status, and they're in different locations around the city. So they're taken care of by this tree doctor, Dr. Horiguchi Chikara, of Hiroshima Botanical Garden. He treats and takes care of these trees. So they gave hope for the local residents after the bombing for living and rebuilding. I remember this atomic bomb survivor, Miss Suzuko Numata. In her testimony, she shared that she really was inspired to live by the budding of a Chinese parasol tree after losing a leg in the explosion. So the parasol tree, there are 4 generations of them right now standing in front of the Peace Memorial Museum. So they're also the standing memories and witnesses of the war and the bombing, and they also serve as a future reminder for the future generations, as a reminder of peace. So Green Legacy Hiroshima built upon these atomic bomb survivor trees. It was founded in 2011 by Dr. Nasreen Azimi, the former director of UNITAR Hiroshima office. As Leah introduced a little bit, is one of the United Nations organ, the only United Nations organs in Hiroshima. And also Ms. Tomoko Watanabe, director of nonprofit organization and Hiroshima, which is a grassroots local peace NGO that works a lot with peace legacy preservation and peace education for local community and visitors. So this is Green Legacy Hiroshima, and we build partnerships through giving the seeds, giving the saplings, and Oberlin College is one of the partners. GLH is pretty cautious with the partner selection because we want institutes who value the significance of these seeds and saplings, but also have the ability to nurture and take care of them. So that's why the partners are mostly research institutes, botanical gardens, universities, and till right now we have 124 partners in 38 countries. So here's another example. This is a Moscow University in Russia. This picture of the planting ceremony at their business school. And this is a domestic partner in Japan at Fukutomi Star Terrace in the Hiroshima Prefecture in Japan. We also have a lot of community events as the seed picking events at Shuken Garden and Hiroshima Castle. It happens twice a year, so we gather these community volunteers and we will pick seeds. And this is from November 2018. This is the ginkgo survivor tree. Ginkgo is still growing really nicely inside Hiroshima. It's Shuken Garden. So after the community members, we pick these seeds up, and the seeds are all sent to Dr. Horiguchi Chikara, who is the tree doctor, and he will remove all the pulp and prep the seeds. And the seeds will be stored in Hiroshima Botanical Garden, stored in constant temperature until it's sent to a partner. So these trees are studied broadly and are categorized into 3 types, these survivor trees. So first is the A-type trees. They're singular trees and with original trunk. That means these trunks stood with the explosion of the atomic bombing, and they have not been moved, so they're standing in the same location. And you can actually see that on one side that is facing the hypocenter of the explosion have more scars and burns, sometimes even like tumor, like skin cancer in a sense, compared to the other side. And this is a survey done by a research team in Tsukuba University in East Japan that you can see here. This is the hypocenter, and these are the trees. They actually found that there's a tilting towards the hypocenter of these trees. And their working theory is that the side that are facing the explosion actually got more burns and more radiation that has a slower growth rate than the other side. So that's why the trees are growing a little bit, a slight tilt towards the center. So these are A types. And the B types, they're basically the same, they have same characteristics as A types. You have the original trunk, they have you can see the differences between their 2 sides. But the only difference is that they have been moved. And the reason they're moved is for the purpose of preservation. For the purpose of, because we want to tell the story, but also building the city. So they decided to move these trees. And C-type trees, they are a bit different. They don't have the original trunk because the trunks were already blown away during the bombing. But they have the roots left, and they regrew from the roots and have these new trunks. So there's little to no visible scars on these trunks. Well, if you ever get a chance to visit Hiroshima City, please, they have a very special tag on them. I don't have time to introduce that today, but I'm happy to show you later if anybody's interested. So the really amazing approach of the Hiroshima City dealt with is a really environmentalist approach with the Hibakujumoku, the atomic bomb survivor trees. You can see in these 2 pictures, both of these trees are the survivor trees. And the staircase was built around the tree. And then here, the roof of the temple is accommodating the tree branch as well. So this is really important to not prioritizing people's convenience over the nature. And also it's really important to show that nuclear weapons and energy affect more than just human, but also the trees, the plants, the animals, and our surroundings. Okay, so it's mentioned a little bit before that we also talked about. So these are 3 organizations that I work with during my Shansi Fellowship in Hiroshima, Japan. So I spent every Friday at Ant Hiroshima, the local grassroots peace NGO, and worked with local peace education programs. I went to schools ranging from kindergarten to universities, talk to young children, young adults about the importance of the legacy. And I spent 4 days at UNITAR, United Nations Institute for Training and Research. And this office, this UN organ, and this specific office they run international human development programs specifically for post-conflict countries like Afghanistan and Iraq. And that means that we run workshops, we bring participants from these countries, and we have workshops, we bring in international experts on project management skills and other pertinent skills to build their skill sets so that they can build their country better. So these people are from different sectors in their countries. And most importantly, we will spend one workshop, we'll bring them to Japan. It's specific to Hiroshima to let them learn about the rebuilding of the city, and especially to show them what it looks like right now after the bombing. So Green Legacy Hiroshima is founded by these two friends, Nesrine and Tomoko. And the Green Legacy is kind of like born from these two organizations. And I'm really happy that I got to work with all three of them. And again, this is how the story changed tilt direct towards the Afghanistan program. So Unitary Fellowship Program for Afghanistan was a flagship program for the Unitary Hiroshima office. So from 2003 to 2018, it was a 15-cycle development program for professionals from Afghanistan. It accumulated over 500 alumni in different sectors. So as it was concluding in 2008, Nesrine and other teammates thought it was important to somehow wrap up the program and conclude and document this very unique community building based project. So this is how the Afghan Fellowship Legacy projects were born. And then among all of the initiatives, there's an initiative called Botanical Gardens Network for Afghanistan, which the aim is to build a network of botanical gardens in Afghanistan dedicated to research for plants relevant to food, medicine, and ecological restoration. And Afghanistan does not have a functioning botanical garden right now. And this initiative is spearheaded by former Unitary Fellowship participants, and they're connected with international botanical garden experts and the gardens themselves to design and consolidate plans for building and running these botanical gardens. So three partner universities were already committed to the initiative: Kabul University, Paktia University, and Bamiyan University. Well, as we all heard that in the past August, Taliban took over the Afghan government. It is a very difficult time for the country, for the community, and for the people. However, we still have people who stayed committed to make it happen, to make the Botanical Garden Network happen in Afghanistan. So now I have a lot more questions like, how does this actually work? Why a botanical garden for Afghanistan, and why right now? I don't think I can really answer all of these questions, so I brought in a digital version of Dr. Nasreen Azimi. So I did like an interview with her, and you can see the question here. This is about a 7-minute video, and I'm going to show it right now.
Thank you. Actually, as Jenny must have explained, AFLP was really created following the model of Green Legacy Hiroshima. And the model of Green Legacy Hiroshima made us realize it was possible to run a global campaign, basically through the goodwill and resolve of a very wide network of people, without constantly having to resort to fundraising and getting approvals and meetings. So that was the model we had in mind. And we felt that the Afghan Fellowship that Jenny also must have mentioned, that was a very unique international development program that had spanned 15 years, that had brought so many hundreds of Afghans and mentors, resource persons from all over the world here to Hiroshima. We felt that that was a capital that we should use to continue the work that we had started in Hiroshima. And then the question was, what kind of project should we do? And I think there I take full responsibility in the sense that I really pushed for the botanical garden component of AFLP because I truly believe that it was one of the most pressing institutions that countries like Afghanistan need. So it was really a combination of experiences, networks, people. I would say the vision and ambition and pretension to make the world better, but with very pragmatic and very modest and very simple way of doing things. And AFLP was launched towards the end of 2019, and in January 2020 we launched the Botanical Garden Network. That's a very long, requires a very long answer. I would say that botanical gardens have become indispensable anywhere in the world now. Botanical gardens are living libraries of the natural world, the plant life. Now, 33 countries in the world don't have a single botanical garden. 40 countries have only one botanical garden. And when you realize that there is such a diversity of landscapes in most countries, you realize one botanical garden is not enough. And so many countries don't even have one. But furthermore, I think over the last 100 years, we have inflicted a kind of sophisticated damage on the planet and on plant life, on which our existence depends, that it's no longer possible to do things in a simple way, to solve the problems in a simple way. We have lost the ability to grow our own food. We have urbanized so intensively. We have industrialized so intensively. The population has grown so immensely. So in other words, now we actually do need knowledge. So if we have inflicted damage, we can at least use the sophistication of our understanding and our sophistication of our scientific knowledge to solve the problems. These all come together in a botanic garden. In a botanical garden, you have the mandate that is a public mandate. In other words, practically all botanical gardens must serve the public. Most of them have educational mandate. Most of them have conservation mandate. Most of them have research mandate. So in a way, you have in one place all the tools that you need to use and maybe to change over time to address the problems that we have. BGNet, needless to say, since the events in August in Afghanistan, has come to a standstill. We are here to help all our partners with whom we have been working for the last 2 years. They are wonderful. They are scientists from agriculture background. They have PhDs in forestry. They know Afghanistan. They love their country. They want to make this happen. And we are here to help this happen. Afghanistan is facing immediate crisis. Winter has arrived. Food is an issue for so many millions of people. But I think even more than before, the existence of botanic gardens are a necessity. It's not a luxury anymore. As I mentioned, the luxury model of botanical gardens is over. Botanical gardens are a place where the Afghans would know they can go and learn how their plants are doing, which ones are endemic, where are the invasive plants, how can they make the food staples grow. The agricultural model for botanic gardens is really taking root. The medicinal component of botanical gardens is really taking root. All these continue to apply to Afghanistan. So without a doubt, in my mind and heart, we should be there as long as we're allowed to continue this campaign. We will continue the campaign, and all the experts who have rallied have committed to continue the campaign. So we hope this is just a temporary lull. We feel, and I feel, and I've always felt, convey that to my students, to my young colleagues, is this is no time for trivial preoccupations. We really have to go to the heart of the matter. And the heart of the matter is, in a world that is spending so much on arms, weapons, violence, and trivial, we need to shun all that and really focus: how can we save the planet, how can we feed the people, and how can we keep this beauty. Once we create something that is deeply meaningful to people's lives, and I have this Peace Memorial Park of Hiroshima behind me, the masterpiece of Kenzo Tange, once people realize how important it is to their lives, they will protect it. So I hope we can create many botanical gardens that the people of Afghanistan will continue to protect over time.
Thank you very much, Nasreen. And I personally am just really amazed by how this initiative is to combine the resources from the UNITAR's Afghanistan program with the network that's accumulated through the Green Legacy Hiroshima partnership built through the seeds and saplings of the atomic bomb survivor trees. And also I just want to point out the background of this video is not a green screen or a backdrop. It is through the window of the UNITAR Hiroshima office. And you can see this is the atomic bomb dome, which is a landmark of Hiroshima City now. And here is the Peace Memorial Park of Hiroshima, all with trees, and that is the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Museum. And this is, this is the exact same building, not the same angle, but the same area around that dome after the bombing. And in the end, I want to share 3 things of my own reflection while working in Hiroshima as a young adult, as a Shansi Fellow. So first, to be honest, during the first 3 months working in Hiroshima, I was not really relating to the trees that well. I'm from Beijing, China, grew up in this overcrowded concrete city that I got really used to seeing trees, plants, flowers as part of the backdrop. I didn't really pay attention to a lot of them, and they're just there. However, even while I was giving the presentation, I was leading the field visits of our visitors, whether global or domestics, to see these trees in person. However, I really did meet a lot of people who were really inspired by the stories and what they saw in these trees. And a lot of them start to say, oh, maybe I can do something with the trees or plants in my own hometown, something similar. It really got them started another conversation in their head. And my mindset was starting to change a little bit. And this is my favorite, it's a little bit weird to say favorite, but I really resonate with this specific specific atomic bomb survivor trees. It is a weeping willow, standing 370 meters from the hypocenter in the same location, which is also the tree that's standing the closest to the hypocenter right now, survivor trees. And I took this picture 2 springs ago, it's very green, and it's on my way to work every day. I remember one day I just stood in front of it, and all of a sudden it made sense to me that this tree has been here over 150 years. It witnessed what happened before the bombing, during the bombing, and after the bombing, and I am standing right in front of it right now. And all of a sudden I was able to see this tree in a linear sense instead of just a point or a snapshot of the present. So that really got me thinking about the surroundings around me, that why and how they are where they are, whether they're trees or other objects. Okay, second point. It's a story when I was leading this field visits. It was a mixture, this group of people was a mixture of nonprofit organization workers from Southeast Asia. It was a mixture of people from all different countries. I led them through these trees. I gave them the presentation about the trees. And one of them came up to me and said, oh, I didn't know that you can actually move the trees instead of just cutting them down. Because she said in her village, there was this small forest of very old trees, but they had to be cut down because of development purposes. They needed the land for development or something. But she didn't really think about moving instead of cutting down the trees were an option. So it is really just a little shift in our decision making sometimes, a little bit, including a little bit more to think about the environment. Maybe, although gradual and subtle, maybe we'll make a change through the little small decisions that we make along the way. And third, and the last point, is something that I thought a lot about during my time in Hiroshima, is how I should navigate through my identity and responsibility as a Chinese citizen, as and young adult, also a Shansi Fellow from Oberlin, working in the Peace Circle of Hiroshima. So the Sino-Japanese War in 1930s, late 1930s and early 40s really left a huge mark on the new Chinese identity. And also I grew up learning about the history, so I was really feeling conflicted while I was working, especially in the beginning of the fellowship. However, through time, I really found a space for myself, which is as a bridge of channel, utilizing my language skills and experiences to communicate the information, the stories of the city and of the trees to more people. Just like how I'm doing here today, I'm really glad I got to bring this information to the Oberlin campus, to the friends and communities here. Okay, so that is the end of my talk, and I want to give special thanks to my colleagues in Hiroshima, Yuko Baba, who edited and filmed the video with Nesrine, also Nesrine for answering the interview questions, and as well as people of End Hiroshima, Ms. Tomoko Watanabe, and the first Shansi Fellow to Hiroshima, Annalise Geisber, for making the slides on the Hibaku Jimoku. And these here are some of the useful links for the Green Legacy Hiroshima, Afghan Fellowship Legacy Project. And here's an interesting paper on the role of botanical gardens in the 21st century. And it kind of explained what roles the gardens play nowadays. And I will take questions and comments from now. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for a wonderful and informative talk. Jenny, thank you very much. Questions and comments from the audience?
Thank you so much, Jenny, for the great talk. And I think this is a very significant and wonderful project. And I was wondering if you had, in your participation, workshops, and your communication between AFLP and the other two organizations, have you encountered any challenges, frustrations in this process?
Thank you very much, Professor Wang. Yes, I wouldn't say specific challenge for myself, but there are definitely a lot of challenges for organization. I also want to point out I was definitely the youngest member on the team, and I was not really included. I mean, in a sense, I wasn't working directly in a lot of decision making, but it was an experience for me to learn a lot about it. But the challenges are definitely very real. For example, even it's more logistic challenge for Green Legacy Hiroshima. The volunteer run, it's very small. You have very limited human powers. But we have so many requests from all over the world. So many people are interested in getting these seeds. And a lot of times you gotta go through the custom, you gotta declare the seeds, and a lot of that can be very troublesome sometimes. And for UNITAR, specifically, because this organization is bringing people for training programs from all the different countries, so traveling can be a challenge. The visa the process, all the nitty-gritty details can be a lot to worry about sometimes. Yes, thank you very much.
You talked about the kind of record on the outside of the trees, of the survivor trees, with the scars and other markings of the bombing, and I'm wondering, is it known, like, is that recorded inside the tree as well, and like the ways that the rings have developed, or like if when one of these trees does die, like what would it be different what you see inside the tree?
Right, thank you very much, Nathan. Let me just pull up some picture of these trees. Let's see. Well, I can only find this one right now. I do not know exactly about the inside of these trees, but a lot of these trees, they're changed. They're very different from the same species of trees. For example, this is a eucalyptus trees in Hiroshima Castle, in the yard of Hiroshima Castle. It's supposed to be a very straight up tree. It's supposed to be very straight, but this one is coiled up, and you can see the skins are kind of like peeling off. from the coiling. And you can see a lot of other trees, they also have the coiled branches, and they're tilted, and some of the trees are hollow inside. So I don't have more information, but I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. I was wondering, with the seeds that get planted in other countries, is there any like noticeable changes or sort of differentiation between those that grow in like the regular eucalyptus trees?
Thank you, Marcus. I do not think there's any reports yet for how different they are, the second generation growing in other environments, because most of these trees are pretty young. It's only been at most 20 years since any organization sending these trees. So I wouldn't say there's any visible differences yet that we can tell from these trees.
So you and Dr. Nasreen spoke about how a lot of countries don't even have botanical gardens, and Dr. Nasreen also talked about the role of botanical gardens today as educational places. So in the country my parents come from, Macedonia, a lot of elder people have a lot of knowledge about plant life, and they're much more connected to the nature. So I was wondering how the botanical garden network can involve the older communities and get their insights on how to, I guess, restore and preserve plant life.
Thank you very much for the question. I wanted to show this, include in the slides, but it was limited on time. I think that's a really great question. So I just want to point out the importance of botanical gardens, specifically the importance of the significance of a network. It's exactly what you talked about, is how we connect information and knowledge among different group, different community. It's the transference of knowledge that is very challenging and difficult. And that is why an established facility like a botanical garden, and even a network of them, will be really helpful. They serve as a research institute, they serve as a horticulture library, and they do with the education outreach as well. And I don't think I have an answer to how we can include the senior citizens, the senior community, but I would say definitely the botanical garden can play a really important role on that, to document the knowledge, to document all of the information everybody have. Thank you.
If the type C trees grew from the roots and don't have any visible markings or scarring on the outside, how are you able to identify those trees and distinguish them from more newly planted trees or trees that were like moved in?
Great, thank you very much for the question. I do not know the exact way they find and identify these trees, but like all the other trees, like I talked about for other trees, they have some really significant markers. For example, this roots here, they can be a little bit coiled up. I think you can see some of unusual characteristics of these trees in their roots, which you do not see in the trunk. Also, this research, I am actually not sure exactly how long this research has been done. And also, I believe there's some way you can test the opponent of the tree as well. But sorry, it was not a really clear answer, but thank you very much for the question.
Could I just add on
Yes,
to this?
yes.
Just to add on to what Jenny was saying, there was actually remarkably soon after the atomic bombing, Jenny showed us pictures of the extent of the damage of aerial warfare at that time at the end of World War II. But there were people who survived the bombings who came into the city, and actually there was a botany graduate student in botany who himself was a survivor of the bombing, who in the several years after the bombing undertook a survey of trees that survived the bombings and also things that started sprouting up from the ground, and he documented those very carefully. And some of his work has been preserved, and so that's been really valuable evidence in identifying which of the trees were actually burned to the ground during the bombing and then started coming back. Question back there.
Did you learn Japanese before you went to Hiroshima? And did the pandemic affect your stay at all, or did you come back before then?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. So I did know how to speak Japanese. I studied Japanese here for 4 years. I also spent a summer learning while I was during my study at Oberlin, and the Shansi Fellowship also provides for 1 summer of language training. So I did 2 summers of language training. And sorry, what's the second question again?
Oh, did the pandemic affect your stay?
Oh, right. So, yes, thank you. So I actually graduated 2018, so my fellowship was from 2018 to 2020. It's really sad to say, but mine was also a little bit affected. I have to come back a little bit early in April, but I'm glad it was only cut for two months short. So I wasn't really affected directly by the pandemic for my fellowship.
Suvan, do you have a question?
My question was, in these pictures, are these tall things we see standing, are those the trees? I can't quite tell if those are bits of buildings
I
or
think
trees.
some of the trees, and those ones are definitely trees. I'm not sure this one specifically, but they're definitely either debris from a building or some of them are trees. I do not know exactly. Thank you.
You mentioned you had a profound experience interacting with the weeping willow. In regards to the trees that survived the blast, did other organisms in the ecosystem change the way they interact with them? Like, have you seen like differences in behavior in terms of a tree that's not radiated versus a tree that is?
Thank you for the question. I don't think so. I don't think I saw any differences specifically. Even for the Fukushima, the nuclear accident, I have the first Shansi Fellow, Annalise, she actually did a tour inside the city. You have to wear all the hazmat suits. And then she told me that, you can see all of these animals, they're just, the plants, the environment, they're just as usual, as visibly. You can see there's basically no difference. The animals are running around and everything. And for Hiroshima, I would say, you can't really tell the city was bombed with an atomic bomb, for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome talk, Jenny.
Thank you.
Do you have any sense of what the events this past summer in Afghanistan have done with the relationship with the Hiroshima project? Like, what sort of support or contact you're able to have with folks there with things changing like they have?
You mean
I
for
know
the,
you're not involved anymore.
you mean for the pandemic?
Or with the Taliban events of the summer.
Oh, right. Okay, thank you, CJ. Thank you very much for the question. Yes, I'm actually still kind of involved with the Afghan Legacy project. And yes, it is definitely, so there's another initiative which is a book project that I'm working a lot on, the book project, to kind of document on people's experience throughout the 15-year development program. And of course, the August event changed a lot of things. We have one very dedicated colleague who's based in Kabul, worked for the UNITAR Hiroshima office for over 10 years, I believe. But he's still very committed to working for UNITAR, but definitely a lot of the alumni of the program reached out to see if there's any chances that can be connected to move out of the country, and that was definitely the focus of the team, I would say recently, definitely. So, and then the narrative of the book changed as well. And for the botanical garden project, maybe you've seen for Kabul University, there is especially difficult for them. They have, I think it was a shooting or bombing, they're happening. So definitely the botanical garden is not their priority right now. So a lot of these changes are happening. But the team is staying positive, and we all know that building a botanical garden, anything like this kind of project does not happen overnight. It's even aiming for a 5-year or 10-year project. So it's a long-term plan in the brewing.
Would it be possible if any individuals here on the campus or Oberlin community or classes or groups would be interested in contributing to the botanical garden project? Is that a possibility, or are you
That's definitely
on hold?
That's definitely a possibility, but at this moment, there are limited things that the initiative can do right now, and I don't think we have figured out how we can incorporate more of the interest and help from people, especially from Oberlin, into the initiative's activities currently.
Let's hope that we change, and so that we can contribute and be involved. We hope you'll keep us updated.
Yes, for sure.
If we have time for maybe one other question. Yes.
I'm just curious, because the way that Dr. Nasreen talked about botanical gardens, I found myself, oh yeah, I think of a botanical garden as a luxury, like a fancy kind of place to go, and that she kind of reframed that for me. But did you find, working with people, did you find yourself trying to convince them of the importance of a botanical garden? Like, culturally, is it different in different societies of like how we think of that as a luxury versus a necessity or public resource?
Yes, thank you very much, Sydney. It's a great question. I've definitely got questions on that before. I think there's definitely a perception on botanical garden just as a recreational facility, but it's really easy to overlook the other kind of functions it serves as a research institute, as a library of horticulture, and as a facility for education outreach and educate our society as well. A common question I got was, I remember whenever I introduced myself talking about this initiative I'm working with, people would be like, Afghanistan, don't they have like, aren't people just having a really difficult time there and you're working on botanical gardens? And definitely there's some convincing I need to do, but I also want to point out on the pragmatic side of the operation, which is everybody have really limited resources. For this particular group, that what else can we do for the country right now, right? We are doing kind of helping each person as much as we can to connect them with other organizations, other ways, maybe if they want to move out of the country, we're getting them a different job or something inside the country. But this is a very tangible plan for this current group of people, very unique, and we don't really see anybody else so capable of doing that right now. And especially, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of these projects are long-term projects. You don't really see a change in a short period amount of time, and it's really hard to quantify the outcome as well. But if you don't start right now, it's just gonna be postponed again and again. So I think there's definitely an urgency in taking the action as well. Thank you, Sydney.
Last question.
You mentioned how Oberlin received some of these seeds. Do you know where those trees are currently grown or planted?
Yes, thank you, Judd. So 2 of the trees are on Tappan Square. There's no plaque on them, but they're the very strangely small trees compared to all the other trees. So I think they're pretty easy to identify, but I believe the LIASE have some kind of brochure on that. And there's also one sapling at the Kendall community as well. And there used to be one in front of Shansi House, but it was unfortunately died in the harsh winter, or some rabbit kind of did some damage as well. Yes.
Yeah, there are 2 Ichionoki ginkgos from the Iwakujimoku from Hiroshima. One's kind of near the Memorial Arch, and one is kind of across the street from King. And at Kendall, I think there are 2 ginkgos and 1 wisteria that are there too. And Kendall is also the community close by here in Oberlin is also an arboretum. So there are many people with expertise and commitment to steward and care for those trees as well. Before we thank our speaker today, I just wanted to thank you all for coming and let you know that we have a related talk coming up on December 10th by Professor Amanda Schmidt in the geology department, and she will be talking about her research on a lake that never existed during her Fulbright in China that was canceled during COVID. And that's just coming up a week, so there'll be posters around, and there'll be things on the digest, and there'll be emailed, so we hope you can join us for that too. Thank you very much, Jenny, for this wonderful